Just a quick little proviso that while we are cheerfully calling all vegans, the opinions and beliefs expressed by them do not always reflect our own.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Calling All Vegans in conjunction with Plant-Based Treaty. I'm Sue Spar. My friend and regular co-host Alec Bosse is the man behind the curtain today. So joining us today is Nithal Jathalal, strategist and policy analyst for the Plant-Based Treaty and Plant-Based Data. Do you like data or data?
Either.
Nithal is also the president of VegTO and a director with the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank. We are very fortunate to be sitting down with two amazing people who have come together for a wonderful, compassionate collaboration. One of them, the protagonist in the inspirational and captivating documentary we'll be discussing, hails deep from the heart of Texas and is the founder and executive director of Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, a nonprofit named after a 2-month-old calf Renee was charged to care for. Renee herself has a lot of zing, so people can be forgiven for thinking that the sanctuary was named after her. On Halloween of 2014, she did the non-spooky thing and went vegan. She then took it more than a step further and converted the family cattle ranch into her dream child, a farmed animal sanctuary home to over 120 animals. Her husband twice over, Tommy Sonnen, a former multi-generational cattle rancher, followed her lead with lots of courage, grit, kindness, and maybe even some stubbornness. They are a vegan power couple dedicated to changing the beef-centric Texas landscape for the better. The documentary, which premiered April 29th at this year's Hot Docs Festival in Toronto and is enjoying a second showing May 3rd, showcases the tireless work of two now animal activists who have had a boot in two very different worlds, and demonstrates that there is, in fact, a common ground between farmers and vegans. Please meet animal hero and real-life Ellie Mae Clampett, Renee King-Sonnen, and the accomplished and versatile director who is bringing her incredible story to life on the big screen, Jason Goldman. Welcome to Wishbone Animal Rights Lab.
Thanks for having us.
So guys, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. As you know, we're big fans of the film and everything you're doing. Right off the top, how did the two of you come to connect, and what drew you to the story, Jason, and inspired you to make this documentary with Renee?
I think like all great personal relationships, one person referred me to someone else who eventually got me on the phone with Renee, and she was kind enough to answer my call. And I was at a stage where I was trying to develop a feature film about an animal sanctuary and find a personal route for audiences to understand why someone would turn their life into rescuing animals and doing anything else they could. And when I first spoke with Renee, which was October 2018, they were just relocating from their property in Angleton. So they were in a bit of a transition phase, but that's when I learned that Renee and Tommy were not only rescuing animals, but as you know, she and Tommy say in the film, they're rescuing ranchers and trying to transform what the agricultural industry could look like with a vegan mind and a compassionate heart.
It's amazing.
Renee, you were living sort of a modern day Green Acres life. Although your circumstance was probably a little bit different, since I can't really imagine Tommy getting away with saying, "You are my wife, goodbye, city life." That even bugged me as a kid. It's like, what? But not to give away the entire film, but can you please just give us a little taste of how a long-time cattle ranch became an animal sanctuary?
Well, thank you, Sue, and it's such a pleasure to be back in Canada and in your midst. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Wow, you know, how did we become a cattle ranch? I'll tell you, it was because I started waking up. I had a spiritual awakening, you know, on a Texas cattle ranch, and I've always been a spiritual girl. I grew up in the Christian faith, and you know, sought all various and sundry different religions when something happened to me in the church, but I always was a seeker of goodness, of the light, and something started happening to me on that cattle ranch because I realized I had this fierce love for animals, but I had no feelings for the cow. Zero. I mean, like, I didn't even care if they were there. And it didn't even occur to me until my husband, Tommy, pretty much pushed me into becoming a born-again cattle rancher.
So it's his fault.
It's his fault, yeah, because he pushed me into it because he wanted me to get more involved, you know. And so I bought Rowdy Girl, and because he wanted me to get more involved, and he thought if I bottle fed this baby calf that needed a mama, that it would endear me to help him open gates, help with the hay baling, you know, whatever else he needed.
Smooth one, Tommy.
So anyway, that's how I ended up, you know, transitioning things, is my relationship to Rowdy Girl. But that happened over a course of 5 years. I met Rowdy Girl, and then it took about 5 years for me to go vegan. I didn't know I was going vegan. I never planned on going vegan.
Yeah. Well, you had a vegan heart. You just didn't know
Yeah,
it.
didn't know it.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. This is something in the film that I think is truly powerful. You get that sense of you wrestling with that and the transition. And on the note of the film, like in terms of how it's shot, so Jason, the natural audio seems to create an even more powerful story. I know there's a term for this in film, but this is probably something, you know, but the fly on the wall, like, did you consider narrating or using music for the soundtrack? Like, what led you to just keep it to the natural audio?
I never wanted narration. I didn't want title cards. I didn't want lower thirds. I wanted people to be dropped into their worlds. Part of that comes from the fact that I love the style of filmmaking, observational. Part of it comes from the fact that there's tons of great vegan documentaries out there, animal rights films, that are rooted in interviews or data, and I wanted something different. And lastly, I'm from New York City. You know, I've spent probably an hour meeting cows, chickens, and pigs at sanctuaries, and there are a lot of people out there like me who are not vegan, who have never met any of these animals. And I wanted to give them the experience of what exactly it is to be in this property and feel the love and the compassion that is there, and how different that is from their normal interaction with these animals, if any.
Wow.
And in terms of the audio, that's also why I chose no music, because I wanted the sounds of the space, the sounds of the animals to take the forefront in part of creating that immersive experience.
It worked.
Thank you.
Now, I've loved punk and metal music, I mean, since I was a young punk. And full respect and a big wallop of jealousy. You've got old school activist and musical genius Moby working on this. He's attached as an executive producer. How did that happen? And then didn't use any music then for you weren't greedy, that's for sure.
No, for sure. Again, it's a mutual friend who I actually, friendship I kind of built during the pandemic when we were isolated. As a mutual friend, we connected. He's been vegan for over 30 years. And I've only been vegan for 7 years, but you know, enough to connect us. And when I told him, he's also a filmmaker. So when I told him about this project, he said, "Oh, do you want to talk to Moby about it?" And I was like,
Nah.
okay, why not? But I also knew that Renee had met Moby a long time ago, and more recently, when her social media account was hacked, he helped her kind of retain her following. So I knew there was still a connection there, and it wasn't a cold sell of introducing who Renee was.
Yeah.
He already got that. And you know, as you know, he's an endless supporter of anything animal rights related. So having a mutual relationship, knowing that I was vegan, the fact that he knew Renee and he got what my vision of the film was, it was actually fairly simple once we made that first initial contact. He did say, you know, my entire music library is up to you, and I had to figure out a way of saying thank you, but no thanks.
No thanks, buddy.
But again, he is such a supporter of the process of a creative process that while he offered it and we discussed it, he was accepting of the fact that I chose not to use his music.
That's great.
It's awesome.
Love that.
The reviews of the film, like so far from what we're seeing, especially knowing we're shouting is, they look awesome. They're pretty great overall. Just wondering, any particular feedback that's really impacted you guys?
I would say the reception overall is great, especially from more mainstream. Variety, mainstream in filmmaking, POV, mainstream in filmmaking. That's really what I was hoping for, is to get an animal rights film into the documentary community. So it has a wider audience, so it's sold to bigger audiences who would not normally seek out these films. So those particularly have been great. There was one review I saw that said, Really engaging film, but wish there was other characters in different countries. And I said to myself, well, maybe that's a different film because this one's about Renee. But I try not to get that hung up on. And just
I didn't read that one. So I read the one about likening me to Roseanne Barr.
Yes, that was great too. Wouldn't have been my first choice, but you know.
Some people just look hard to
Yeah,
grab
it was
about
so funny
something,
to
I
me. I
think.
was
huh?
like, wow.
But being a sensitive, insecure, anxious-ridden artist, I am appreciative of all positive reviews, and I try and avoid.
So you curled up in the fetal position for a couple
Yeah.
hours, but then
Renee
you
will
were
be like-
fine after that.
Renee said, "Did you read this review?" I said, "I'm trying not to read any reviews. Thank you very much." But
Well,
no.
they've been really positive.
have to
You
be.
know, I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that thing's made out of real
What
wood.
about, but like, okay, so beyond reviews, though, in terms of feedback, have non-vegans been reaching out to you guys? Like, in particular, we're interested in hear any of them.
Yeah, you know, I was sitting at a table the other day with a non-vegan that's now, I think, going vegan.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know, so yeah, I think some non-vegans are going to be affected by this.
And
I
some
really
of the,
do.
at the mixers at the film festival, people know about the film, right? And I asked them, "Oh, are you vegetarian or vegan?" And they're not. You know, so it's
This is
it's
exactly
starting
what
to
we
pull
need.
people
That's
in.
good.
I mean, that's obviously the goal, right? Obviously, I hope vegans love the film, but I really want to get people who are haven't even thought about giving up animals in their life.
I heard tomorrow a pretty well-known activist is bringing, she called it a whole gaggle full of people, and a lot of them are non-vegan.
Perfect.
I mean, getting into hot dogs, I have a friend who works there, and it is no easy feat. So it's already got a lot of eyes on it.
Yes.
Yeah?
Super
Knocking on wood
grateful.
again.
Super grateful.
What? Cool. Yeah, I hear.
So, Jason, this film is truly a love story with many different layers.
Yes.
Renee and Tommy are very relatable and authentic. I'm going to pretend you're not sitting right there, and I'll just swell your head up like a pumpkin. Huh? There are so many emotions that a person can experience and actions that they will or won't take after seeing such a profound film. What do you hope the people come away with after taking in this extraordinary piece of storytelling?
I certainly want people to question their life choices and certainly build that connection of, you know, I think one of the most obvious analogies we always use is how could you pet your dog and eat a pig, right?
Yeah.
And have them kind of understand that all living beings, especially sentient ones that are in our lives, deserve and look for love and look for acceptance and warmth, you know, and we are very easily able to provide that. And it feels as good whether we know those animals or not, right? And get them to start thinking about, well, you know, if it looks so easy on screen and these animals are so cute, then do I really need to go get a bacon cheeseburger? Like, is that really what's most important
And we
to
can
me?
give you one. It's just
Yes,
not.
it's just made out of plants.
Yeah.
You know, but to get them to like snap out of this routine or this habit
That
is
trance,
that can be so hard for people. And I understand it's hard to change habits. I can't change many of my own habits. But maybe this is another catalyst. And again, like I said before, so many films work for certain people in different ways. And this one does not have any slaughterhouse footage, no vision of abuse. And that will allow my parents to come see it, you know, or anybody who would not be interested. So to help people think things differently.
Very good.
So I can't help, I was telling Sue, maybe to keep things tight, etc., and on the film, to maybe not mention ranch advocacy program, but I don't think I can. We've already talked about industrial animal agriculture. It's so inspiring in what you're doing, and many people might not know about it. So
Thank you.
this is a huge initiative you have underway with this, the RAP. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about what it is and kind of where you see it in 5 years?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, it is a huge initiative. It started back in 2017 when our story went viral on CBS Evening News, and cattle ranchers and their families started reaching out to me like very regularly because our story jumped out of the screen and into their laps, you know, and so common everyday cattle rancher folks were like hearing real ranchers talk about the way they have feelings for these animals. And so the things you normally would not talk about, those taboo subjects, were being talked about on CBS News, on Animal Planet, on other, you know, platforms. And So when they started hearing it, it started triggering those things inside of them that we are told not to go to. We're not told not to talk about those things. I mean, I can remember Tommy telling me, over and over, Renee, I don't want to talk about that. I'd want to push a subject. I don't want to talk about that. This is just what we do. It's like there's a door, I talk about it in the film, that you dare not go through, because if you do, you'll realize those animals are all just like us. And once so RAP is really about, it started out being a program to help farmers that were coming to terms with these emotional feelings they were having for the animals they sent to slaughter. That's what it originally was about. Mm. And what happened is, because our cattle ranch transitioned to a nonprofit, that's not feasible for every farmer out there to become a nonprofit. Yeah. My unique set of talents and skills and my husband's combined lended itself to us transitioning to a nonprofit that would eventually start a program like RAP that would help farmers and ranchers. That wasn't always the way it was going to be, but I took all of my skills, all of my life skills. I'm 65 years old. I have a lot of experience in business and in promotions and in advertising, in real estate, just a lot of, on the stage, marketing. I've had my own businesses. So I took all of that and I thought, you know what? I need to help other farmers. I need to figure out how to help them. So I launched into a vigorous course of action to figure this out, for lack of a better term, okay? And when I did, I started realizing just how difficult this was going to be, because our government is steeped in normalized violence. I mean, the subsidies, the bailouts, all the insurance bailouts, all of that, it's just geared to completely give a false front after the productivity of animal agriculture. It's not productive, really. It's all bought and paid for through subsidies and bailouts. It's a real scam, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, to give people that false sense of
Yes.
At the checkout counter.
It's
right?
really not. It's not sustainable at all.
Right.
And so RAP was born from me really having this awakening. And so I sought funding to help. There was a particular ranch, cattle ranch and chicken farm in Arkansas that I really wanted to help, and we're still helping, transition. So it's a long road, but that's how it started. I don't know how much more you want to know.
No,
there's a lot to talk about.
I don't want to give away too much too, because you cover some of the transition in the
Yeah.
film too. So I mean, that's perfect. I'm so blessed.
Yeah, we want to make sure
we're very
people
blessed
go
that
to
you
the
guys
film.
that this idea came to you. To help, transitioning out animal agriculture is a very under focused and much needed area.
And you know what happened when we started it? I talked to leaders all over this movement, and nobody was doing it then. No one, And so I'm kind of like, wow. And even a lot of leaders in the movement, they didn't even want to really, they thought, Renee, you will never, this is too hard. You got to, but I couldn't hear no.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear no, it can never be done. I kept hearing in my mind, it has to be done.
Yeah.
Because these farmers and ranchers are good people. They're salt of the earth. But they're bought and paid for by animal agriculture, and they have no options, no choices. So if not me trying to figure it out, who?
Yeah, I guess, as a vegan and an activist, a lot of times I do roll my eyes when a farmer says, oh, I love my animals. So, maybe we are being a little bit unfair. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to love my animals and participate in killing them.
Yeah.
It's a fact. Because of it, I grew up Christian, okay? I know the Bible pretty good. And there's a verse in there that says, in my Father's house there are many mansions. We all have the ability to awaken. We all have the ability to walk through other stratospheres in our consciousness if we dare go there, okay? And so farmers and ranchers are not in that mansion. They don't have the ability to understand how to navigate in a world where animals are free, because they're in a mansion where they've been sold a bill of goods that it's tradition, it's culture. Everything is all about the almighty dollar, their culture, their family, their generational, in the way they look, everything. involved in that one little mansion. So how can they possibly? I remember going back and forth. For 5 years, I went back and forth between mansions. Okay, I went back and forth.
Putting that boot on one side of the fence and then on the
I
other.
would go, oh my God, I can't go there, and I'd jump back over because I got to be a good rancher's wife. I've got to be a really good cattle rancher's wife. I can't go over there in that world where animals are sentient and not eaten. How can I be married to a cattle rancher? So I'd slip back over and go be a good cattle rancher's wife. And the next thing you know, I'm asking Tommy, well, how come we're not eating our own cow? I would just, I'd be asking him all these crazy questions,
Like a kid, huh? With a parent who doesn't want to answer these questions, right? You just kept
Exactly.
hanging in there.
It's a tough place for ranchers when you're awakening. But my hope is that our story and others like it, because there's a whole bunch of them happening now.
That's good.
They're happening. I mean, I say a whole bunch. I mean, like there's a slew of them, but there's a lot more than there was.
That's bigger than zero, though, right? So that's more than zero.
So we need to capitalize on the ones that are transitioning.
We'll make sure they're successful, and then that speaks for itself then for the next guy.
And that's the hard part, is making sure they're successful. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
We don't live in a country where they're geared to be successful.
Yeah,
we have a
it
really
sets it up for failure.
lopsided government in the United States that's all about animal agriculture. Yeah.
Even if they're not successful, honestly, as an economist, you've helped many people get this on the radar in the discussion because it's something that wasn't considered, and the debt structure, the subsidies, et cetera, as you mentioned. So even in the midst of figuring it out and where there are challenges and mistakes, it's very informative.
Thank you for that, Nicole. Really, that's really good to hear.
But
It's hard when you're in the trenches.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'm in the trenches, believe me.
I was very keen to ask you guys this question, especially Jason. Like, climate change is humanity's biggest threat, or at least from where I'm sitting. So, does this come up for you and you as well, Renee, in your animal rights outreach?
I try and incorporate it. Because again, it's finding where to meet people, which is like Renee's specialty. Meet them where they are. So whether I fall on the health, the environment, or the ethics part of the spectrum, that's where I go for. But whenever I talk about one thing, I always bring in something else. Because if you have someone who's engaged and you can show them the layers of their impact, of their change in life, then I think it just reinforces them to make that decision.
Yeah, we identify those as co-benefits when we're doing our outreach.
Absolutely, co-benefits. I call it the 3 pillars of veganism. And if you don't like one, there's another one just as valuable.
Just open this little cupboard door and look in here.
I would like to say, as far as the environment goes, that pillar, Tommy and I have been Jane Velez Mitchell, our great friend, coined us as climate change refugees because we were inundated with 3 floods, 3 major floods that forced us to move our entire sanctuary and our organizational operation, to Central Texas.
Yeah, higher, drier ground, huh?
Do you remember that, Sue?
Yeah, I was reading about that.
Yeah. So, it was a tough time because we were watching other cattle ranchers leave their animals to just get drowned and die and go off and take care of their families because they're going to get the bailouts, okay? I saw all kind of cows floating in the freaking waters of all that. And, here we are doing everything we can to save our animals before we even save ourselves because that was what we did. And we did that 3 times. And one of them was a 100-year flood, to your point. One of them was a 500-year flood event. And then the last one, I'm not sure I don't know if it was a 100-year or 50-year or what it was, but it flooded us out. And we gratefully had bought that land in Welder. And so we moved our operation there. And then COVID happened. And then the big Texas freeze happened. Okay, so we were inundated with another climactic event.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We were literally knocked out of operation for almost 2 weeks with that freeze, having to, break water in ice to get our animals water. Tommy lived on that tractor, keeping hay in the bellies of those cows, just so they would not die from being frozen. And then the next year, I think it was the next year or two, then the big drought. That drought last year, just about, do this in. So it's
you
real
can't win
for
for
us.
losing, huh?
And people don't believe in climate change?
Yeah.
I am shocked
I know.
at the amount of people, my own family.
Very frustrating.
I mean, hopefully people are gonna like. Hopefully that awakening happens for a lot of people because we're really running out of time.
Yeah, and people who believe in climate change, like at COP, are eating meat at lunch, and it's just you just can't.
Oh my
How can
God.
you be a scientist and not already put those facts together? You
They
know?
seem clownish when they do something like
It's,
that.
yeah, it's
They're not serious people
Yeah.
when they do
There is
something
some movement,
ridiculous.
thankfully. It just Sue knows this. I was saying before. I don't know. Like it's a big question up in the air if it'll be fast enough. But COP27 and or 6 in Scotland, I think. Whichever is in Scotland, they're starting to talk about moving towards more plant-based foods. And actually, Nicholas Carter from Plant Based Tree now will be going over to Dubai for this year's, and you can bet that we're going to make some noise about that if it's not already plant-based. Hopefully,
Get out of my way and let me up there
I
and
tell
say
you.
something.
I tell you.
honestly.
Well, I'm going to lighten this up a little.
All right.
Well, not too late, but we all get to see Renee on the big screen, getting to where she is now. But what's your vegan backstory? Is it as exciting as Renee's?
I can't. I mean, I was never married to a cattle rancher. So
Yeah.
But
You didn't go vegan on Halloween?
I did not
Yeah.
go vegan on Halloween. I mean, when I was younger, and I was eating meat, I always disliked bones and cartilage, right?
Yeah, gristle.
Even when I was even when I was young, there's something about it that I just wouldn't be into. And then later in life, when I was moved into New York City, and I kind of discovered tofu at this fancy vegan deli called Sacred Chow that was in New York City forever, and I just ate it. I was like, wow, I can eat everything on this plate and it tastes great, and I still hadn't put
And no gristle.
everything together. Exactly. It tastes good, it's healthy, it was affordable, all the good things. But not until around 2015, when I was at a filmmaker program, a friend of mine was vegetarian, and he said, I don't eat anything with a mother. Right? Yes. And that's something that you don't that is certainly a animal rights perspective,
Yeah.
right? That these other beings have mothers and children.
That's
and families.
right.
So that definitely started to spin me around. I had not long after that I had ordered exotic meat at a Belgian restaurant, and it was a very awful experience. And I really certainly things were turning to me very rapidly, and I realized that none of this is making sense.
It was all starting to line up for you
Exactly.
that this was the
Exactly, and I think the cherry on top was that I was very much of the feeling that living in our world, your money is your vote.
Yeah.
And I realized that I did not want to put any more money into these industries that did things that I no longer agreed with. And I was trying to, and I think the takeaway is I was trying to live my morals, live my ethics.
Yeah.
And at that point, I said, all right, I'm done with all this. Maybe I was vegetarian for like a month, and I was like, what am I doing? What a waste of time.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was the switch had flipped. It wasn't a question. It
Yeah.
wasn't a struggle. I was all in at that point.
full
you know?
respect. Right on.
And he
Good answer.
cooks great. I mean, he's a great cook.
Yeah, and I think part of it also was like cooking more, because I was,
It opens
you're
up a whole
building
new world. People
relationship.
think you're limited and restricted. You actually want to explore more.
Absolutely.
Then, like I never would have tried a falafel. I grew up in small town Ontario, right, rural Ontario,
For
and
sure.
it was like, nope, it's just your vegetable, your potato, and your piece of meat.
And on the flip side, you're as you're handling these meats at home, and the experience is no longer good, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, where did this come from? Why is this organic? What's
Yeah.
grass fed? It's like all these things.
There's too
that
many
are lies.
rules around
Yeah.
it. You may as well just
Yes, and once you learn that it's all just marketing, then you're like, okay, well, it's all a lie, basically, right?
yeah.
Sure.
Surprise.
That's something I know we have to wrap soon, but plant-based tree, that's moving meals, not versus people, but focusing on moving meals vegan as well, so you get that halo effect, that world opening up. That's becoming a bigger part of strategy, at least personally for me. So I know there's a lot of stuff you guys are up to now. Renee, you have a book, but before even getting that, so after Hot Docs, where can people find this film?
We're still rolling out the festival strategy. And
Okay.
if you follow the Instagram page or any of Renee's channels, you'll hear announcements as we're able to make them public.
Okay, and besides the film itself, what's next for each one of you?
Well, what's next for me is, good golly, we are talking about a strategy to do an entire impact tour with the film.
Impact tour.
Yeah, impact tour, and I am learning a lot about what's happening next. And then the book is right on the tail end of it, Secret Diary of a Cattle Rancher's Life. And so the secret.
Yeah, you have to say
The
it like
one
that.
and only secret diary of a cattle, and it's full of secrets. I promise you.
Well.
You think you heard some stuff in the documentary that was like, wait till you read the book.
Tommy, you know that, right?
He does. Yeah, it's pretty
He's
wild.
back there cringing right now.
Yeah, so the book, we hope to have it published by October. I won a contest by the vegan publisher. The vegan publisher's in the UK. And I won a contest, an $8,000 publishing package.
Ooh,
So-
that's a
Amazing.
sweet little
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you. So I'm going to get to have the book published, and it'll be on Amazon. It'll be on Ingram
And
Spark.
that's $8,000 US too, so that's big
Yeah.
money here in Canada.
Yep. So we get to do that. So it's going to all be coming like interwoven.
Beautiful. Any other questions here, Sue, before we let these guys?
No, I think that these would take us over the top. So, so if you want to learn more about Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and its programs, you can visit them at rowdygirlsanctuary.org. And we'll be putting this up on the screen when this comes out. Facebook, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. Instagram, at Rowdy Girl. I see a theme developing here. Huh? And then to follow Jason's projects, I have wildgrowthmedia.com.
Yeah,
Anything?
RowdyGirlFilm.com is
Right.
up as well.
Okay.
And then we're primarily on Instagram, but hopefully one day expand beyond Rowdy Girl Film.
And just make sure you know that the Rancher Advocacy Program has its own website.
Oh, yes, that's right.
And its own social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Rowdy Girl has a TikTok.
And is it rancheradvocacyprogram.org?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's rancheradvocacy.org.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, it's rancheradvocacy.org.
Right, sorry about
It's
that,
Rancher Advocacy Program on social.
Okay. All right.
I honestly get a lot of inspiration following that. Some days it feels like the battle is hard. Then when films like this come out, and you can follow social media accounts like that, it reminds you there's a collective struggle and people are doing some
Yeah,
great work out
some
there.
feel-good story there happening, huh? Well, we had a ton more questions, but I guess that's
Part
it.
two.
Yeah.
Part two?
Part
There we
two.
go, yeah. See you next year.
Darn, man. It just felt like we just got started. Seems we just got started, and before you know
Oh, yeah, this gal's country and western.
Well, we gotta let you guys are here to enjoy hot dogs and experiences, so we gotta let you maximize that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So
Yep.
thank you very much for all the work you're doing to help people realize that better lives for animals is the key to a better world for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll
Thank
see
you.
Thanks, guys.
tomorrow night.
Tomorrow
at the second
night.
screening.
That's right.
The second screening.
Exciting. All right.
Woo, thank you.
That was a pleasure.
I had to